Hey, hello there. Thank you so much for stopping by to check out this video. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, then welcome to Bible Study with Angela. I hope you feel at home and I'm super excited that you're here. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how childhood experiences can have a very negative effect on us as an adult. This video is actually part 4 of a series that I'm currently doing. In the previous video, I shared my own story of battling shame and overcoming shame in my own life and what it was like to be victorious, even over addiction. If you have not seen any of the videos in this series, then I want to encourage you to go down below in the description box and check out the links down there for the other videos. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Here is this study that was done, and I really want to talk to you about that today. It's called the ACE study. ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. There are several articles out there. There are also many YouTube videos where they talk about this ACE study. You can go out there and search it up and find some videos, but there are a couple videos in specific that really spoke to me. One of the videos in specific that really spoke to me was a TED Talk done by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, where she discusses this ACE study that had been done somewhere in the mid-90s by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente. If, as a child, from birth till the age of 18, if you had been exposed to one of 10 different types of trauma in your life, it would make you more susceptible to 7 out of 10 of the leading causes of death in the United States. So I want to read to you a description here of the ACE study. 17,500 adults were asked about their history of exposure to what they called adverse childhood experiences. For every yes to these answers, you would get a point on your ACE score. And then what they did in this study was they correlated these ACE scores against health outcomes. And what they found was very shocking. First of all, ACEs are incredibly common. 67% of the population had at least one ACE. There was a responsive relationship between ACEs and health outcomes. The higher your ACE score, the worse your health outcome. So let me read to you this list of 10 adverse childhood experiences that were included in the study. Number 1 is sexual abuse. Number 2, physical abuse. Number 3, emotional abuse. Number 4, parental separation. Number 5, parental divorce. Number 6, witnessing intimate partner violence. Number 7, household substance abuse. Number 8, mental illness in the household. Number 9, incarceration in the household. Number 10, emotional or physical neglect. I want to give you a visual example of this study that was done. So let's take my life as an example, my personal experiences and my life testimony. I actually have experienced 5 of those things listed in the study. I have 5 rocks in my hand, and for each experience that happened to me, I'm going to put them in a bowl. Have a bowl here. So I was exposed to parental separation. My parents were separated for at least a year, and then my parents divorced, so that's 2 in the bowl here. I had witnessed intimate partner violence. There was household substance abuse. My mom's boyfriend drank. And my mom's boyfriend was incarcerated, so household incarceration. And so basically what the study is saying is that I have 5 different childhood experiences that put me more at risk for developing illnesses or different diseases. I'm talking about things like depression, suicidality, heart disease, lung cancer, mental illness, and developing these things as an adult. When I say it puts you more at risk for developing these things, what I mean by it is I'm talking about the trauma that you experience as a child, or that I experience as a child, puts us more at risk. And why is that? As an adult, suddenly we become more high risk for these diseases and these things. Is it because, we watched our parents smoke or drink, and so we decide that's what we're going to do because we watched and were abused, or physically, verbally, mentally, and so we copy those actions and that lifestyle? Sure, that can be attributed to some of it, but there truly is a science behind it, and we are going to get into more of that a little later. So I did talk about this in my previous video, and that's the story of me witnessing domestic violence between my mom and her ex-boyfriend. And so the night that my mom's ex-boyfriend broke in the house and tried to kill her, I will say that there were sights, scents, and sounds that I will never forget. And I would guess for about a good decade after that happened, I did experience a little bit of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And, it's something usually that veterans of war experience. And, I'm quite sure that some of them have experienced extreme PTSD. Mine was definitely more mild, and with the help of God, I was able to push through that and get some healing. So the night that my mom's ex-boyfriend broke through the glass door in the back of the house, he had thrown a brick through the glass door, and it was that sound of shattering glass that woke me up. I had been sleeping on the couch, thankfully on the couch that night. I typically would sleep in my room. My brother was not home. He was spending the night next door with his friend. And I heard this sound of shattering glass. And my mom had been doing a lot of spring cleaning in the house at that point in time. She had been staying up late. And so I was thinking that, she must have broke something while she's cleaning. So I jumped off the couch. I ran to the kitchen, which is the very next room. And I heard scuffling and grunting and yelling, and I realized there was something else going on. And my mom was saying, "What are you doing? Stop," And I got to the door, and I saw the doorway of the kitchen, and I saw that her ex-boyfriend was beating her. And I screamed all kinds of obscenities and, was yelling like, "What's going on? What are you doing?" And finally, he put his attention on me, and he ran straight at me. And I just remember seeing a fist like flying at my face. And I honestly don't know what happened, but I did not get hit. I don't know if I dodged. I don't know if I fell. I don't know what happened. But I fell down, and my mom started screaming at that time, to get his attention off of me. And so he turned away from me and ran back into her. So I ran to the next room and grabbed the phone. And he saw me grab the phone. So again, he ran back to me. He ripped the phone out of my hand, shoved me across the room. I flew into a chair. The chair flipped over backwards with me in it. And I remember when I got up off of the ground, I saw him take the phone and he threw it into the kitchen, throwing it at my mom, who was laying on the floor. And at that point, I ran out of the house, and I ran to my neighbor's house. It just so happened to be the same neighbor where my brother was staying. The boy's dad was an EMT. And I ran pounding and screaming, pounding the door and screaming for help. And they opened the door, and I went in, and I was just screaming hysterical, like, "Call 911." They called 911, and they started asking me questions like what was going on. And before you knew it, my mom came knocking on the back door. And you guys, she was covered in blood. just covered in blood. And I remembered thinking, oh my gosh, is my mom okay? Is she going to be okay? Like, what happened to her? And the ambulance came, police came. But my car was stolen that night. My mom's ex-boyfriend took my keys, and I believe that was our only running vehicle at that time, was my car. My mom had been driving it, and so he stole my car, and I had no way to leave or to get anywhere. But the ambulance came, and they took my mom away in the ambulance. But one thing specific that I wanted to point out in all of that I just described to you was at the moment that my mom's ex-boyfriend came at me and tried to punch me. I remember as he got close to me, the smell of blood and alcohol mixed. And I will never forget that smell. It's embedded in my memory. And there have been times over the years that I will smell that scent of alcohol. I will smell the scent of blood. And it brings those memories back to my mind. That whole situation that happened all of those years ago is not as traumatic to me today as it was back then. I will say that even in making this video, it was a subject that I had not thought about for many, many years. And so to think about those details that intensely, to retell the story, it was a really good reminder of how traumatic it was to me at the time when it happened. There was a little bit of PTSD going on for me because there were things that would cause me to remember and have flashbacks. And I want you to know that God truly can heal you from those things. I'm not telling you it's going to happen overnight. I'm not telling you that it happens in an instant. God will sometimes allow you for a period of time of struggle, and then all of a sudden you'll be released from it. I would say that receiving your healing is not just a sprint. It's more of a marathon. A sprint happens quick and it's over, but a marathon takes time and endurance and patience. And getting your healing is going to take time and patience and endurance, and it's going to take you trusting God, letting Him in, letting Him heal you. So I have 5 things here on my ACE score. I just shared with you one of them. One. And so understanding that one of those experiences can really have a major effect on a person. That was one incident that happened in my life. So I want you to understand how important it is that you really do let God bring healing for those things, because unresolved, ungrieved, unprocessed, undealt with traumas can truly affect you in your adult life. What you may not realize is those traumas affect the very way that you think, and very possibly are still affecting the way that you think and process things. The scary part is, for the most part, people don't realize that their past traumas are still affecting their thinking today. So let's go back to this ACE study, this Adverse Childhood Experiences study. I want to talk to you a little more about the specific science behind the study. It says that for a person with an ACE score of 4 or more, their relative risk of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, what is 2.5 times of that of someone with a score of 0. For hepatitis, it was also 2.5 times. For depression, it was 4.5 times. For suicidality, it was 12 times. A person with an ACE score of 7 or more had triple the lifetime risk of lung cancer and 3.5 times the risk of ischemic heart disease, which is the #1 killer in the United States. So there were 17,500 adults that took a test answering yes or no to those questions. For every one of those they could say yes to, they got 1 point. And I do want to say that just because you may have experienced 1 or 3 or maybe even all 10 of these things listed and then some, your fate is not sealed and you're not doomed to these outcomes that I've described, these diseases, these illnesses. You know, the study is just showing that it does make a person more at risk. But I also do want to point out that I have come with a message of hope to remind you that our fate isn't sealed by some statistics or science. But I also want you to understand that God is a healer. He is a redeemer. He is a savior that wants to make us whole. So I want to read to you here some things that I have written down from the notes that I had taken. It says that traumas that we face, they actually affect our brain development. And I'm going to read this to you. It says that the pleasure and reward center of the brain that is implicated in substance abuse, it affects the part of the brain responsible for impulse control and learning. Affects the part of the brain that's responsible for impulse control and learning. On MRI scans, they can see measurable differences in the amygdala, the brain's fear response center. So we're talking that they can actually see this on an MRI scan. They can see the damage that is done from a childhood trauma. And Dr. Burke actually said that there are real neurological reasons why people exposed to high doses of adversity are more likely to engage in high-risk behavior. And that's important to know because it turns out that even if you don't engage in any high-risk behavior, you are still more likely to develop heart disease or cancer. So I'm about to say a couple big words here that Dr. Burke talked about. She says that the reason for this has to do with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the brain's and body's stress response system that governs our fight or flight response. So you've probably heard this example given before, but imagine that you're in a forest and there's a bear and it's chasing you. So immediately your hypothalamus sends a signal to your pituitary, which then sends a signal to your adrenal glands, which says release stress hormones. Adrenaline is released, your heart starts to pound, your airways open up, your pupils dilate, you are ready to fight this bear or run from it. Dr. Burke said in kind of a funny way that it's really amazing how the body is made to respond in a situation like this if you're in a forest and if there's a bear. But the problem is, what happens when the bear comes home every night and you're a child who has been exposed to this trauma over and over and over. And all of these stress faculties in your body are subjected to a repeat of this stress. So this amazing reaction that our body has to stress ends up affecting us very negatively instead of in a positive way because we're exposed to these traumas over and over and over. Children are extra sensitive to traumas like this because their brains and bodies are young and they're growing and developing. And when they face these repeated traumas, it not only affects their brain development, but it also affects their immune system. And believe it or not, it even affects the way our DNA is read and transcribed. So now we understand that a person who has been exposed to one or more of these traumas or experiences is going to be more susceptible for disease and different things than a person who has not been exposed to any of them. Now, I'm not saying that if you have not been exposed to one of these 10 things that you've not been traumatized, because there are plenty of other things that are traumatic that happen in life that can cause these same reactions. This was just the 10 things that they used for this testing. I'm going to read to you a list of things that I put together that can also cause trauma. A child who has went from wealth to extreme poverty very quickly. Vice versa, a child who has went from extreme poverty to extreme wealth very quickly, and that's depending on how the parent or guardian facilitates that. That can bring a lot of trauma. Relocating can cause trauma, whether that's a one-time relocation, leaving everyone and everything that you've ever known, relocating to a new place, or possibly you have a parent or parents who are in the military and you've done nothing but constantly relocate. Being exposed to pornography, being bullied, the death of a parent, sibling, or a loved one. That can mimic abandonment, even though a parent or loved one dying is not them abandoning you on purpose. However, a loved one or a parent who commits suicide definitely falls under abandonment. So a person with an ACE score of 7 or more had triple the lifetime risk of lung cancer and 3.5 times the risk of ischemic heart disease, the #1 killer in the United States. You know, the tendency is there to think that because you had these different traumatic things happen in your life, you know, because you had a rough childhood, then you have the tendency to make bad decisions because, you know, for example, if you lived in a home where a parent drank and was abusive, then you would grow up and do the same thing because that's what you witnessed, that's all you knew. And because of it, then you make bad decisions. I mean, we know that smoking and drinking, you know, it will cause you to have bad health and can raise your level for, you know, heart problems or different disease. But really, this is where science comes in because it's a little more than just affecting that part of your psyche. It's more than just you seeing a bad example and repeating it. When I heard about this ACE study, it made so much sense to me because I've seen the effects of childhood trauma in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of many others. Over the last 18 years, I've worked alongside my husband pastoring a church and working with people and seeing these childhood traumas affecting them as adults. I want you to think about this list of 10 adverse childhood experiences that I've given. I'm going to post them down below in the description box, along with the other things that I listed that could cause childhood trauma. And I want you to think about your own life, your own past, and see if any of these apply to you, and see if very possibly they could be the root to some of the things that you're struggling with. Depression, anxiety, emptiness, loneliness, possibly even illness. I had stated in a previous video that unforgiveness is very damaging, and it does allow physical illness to come on you. And then after you've read over these lists, pray about it and ask God to open your eyes and reveal to you if there are areas of healing that you need. God may not open every single thing to you at once. He is probably going to take it one thing at a time, and then you need to pray and let Him begin the healing process. Now, I want to say that if you feel as though you've went over the list, you've searched your past, you've searched yourself, your mind, and you really can't think of anything that has caused trauma in your life, yet you know that there's something going on inside, it's very possible that it's something has happened and you've buried it and you just don't remember, or it happened to you at a very young age that you can't remember. However, God can still bring healing, and that's for you and God to figure out. I want to read some Bible verses to you. Psalm 147 verse 3, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 34:17, The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Jeremiah 33:6, Behold, I will bring it health and healing. I will heal them and reveal to them the abundance of peace and truth. Psalm 91, 9 and 10. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. There are many great and precious promises that God gives us in His Word. And I know that if God has brought so much healing into my life personally, that He can do the same for you. God has not only healed and delivered me from shame and blame and unforgiveness, but He has also led me down the paths of making healthier choices, living a healthier lifestyle. He is a good, good Father that loves us and wants His best for us. So as I was doing edits for this video, I really felt to play and sing this song for you. I want you to think about the things that I've said in this video. Listen to this song, close your eyes, let God begin healing in you today. When emotional healing comes, then physical healing will follow. Remember that God has a plan for you. He's not finished with you yet, and He loves you so much. Be blessed. This song is called That's What Jesus Does by Shara McKee.